friends, and welcome to the Loop of Horror. I'm Count Dracula, and this is our looping top, where you will find interesting information about the dark side. Enjoy your macabre and filthy ravings, while I keep looking for the gold ring that Napoleon gave to Igor. Maybe I can get some money at the pawn shop. I think it is his last valuable possession. But there are basic necessities that must be bought urgently.
Before we begin, we remind you that we upload new and monstrous videos every Tuesday night. If you like this type of content, subscribe and activate the bell so you can get caught in this loop of horror.
Magic is everywhere. Each corner of the world develop its own magical thinking, a belief system associated with rituals and objects in which the wishes, dreams, and frustrations were deposited by those who, aided by the power of the mysterious, started a pursuit of the impossible. But not all of them were well-intentioned, since their version of the ideal world was to harm others in terrible ways that sometimes we still cannot understand. Even when they were punished and, on many occasions, eliminated, they left their terrible power and essence impregnated in objects that to date have terrified and harmed people without being able to find an explanation. Get uncomfortable and turn off the lights, because next we will show you 5 cursed objects of history.
Although the world's largest blue diamond was thought to have been gouged out of the eye out of a Hindu statue, it was actually bought by Jean-Baptiste Taverner during a trip to the mines of Couleur, who in turn sold it to King Louis XIV. The Hope Diamond is credited with the death of 24 owners, starting with Tavernier himself, who, despite having bought a noble title and a castle with the money from a diamond, lost his fortune overnight, escaped to Russia, and he lived in the street where he died of cold in 1689, part of his corpse being devoured by some dogs. King Louis XIV himself died of gangrene months after touching the stone for the first time on December 7, 1715. His son, Louis XV, ordered the stone to be kept in a chest. He never displayed it, never touched it, or never even looked at it. French King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette were next, both executed by guillotine during the French Revolution. After this, a French revolutionary by the name of Guillot stole the stone and was imprisoned soon after and died in prison in 1796. Before this happened, he managed to sell the stone to Catherine the Great, the Russian Tsarina, who, as soon as she wore the gem, died of a heart attack. The jewel was divided in two, and both parts followed different routes, with the Duke of Brunswick and a Dutch carver being the next owners. The Duke lost his fortune in less than 2 months, and the carver was killed by his own son to steal the jewel and sold it to Francis Berlou. The killer's son, in remorse for his crime, took his own life. The next 2 owners, Berlou and David Ellison, were not spared from the curse. They died in no time. However, before he died, Ellison sold it to King George IV, who embedded the jewel in his crown and, as we all know, went mad. The Hope Bacon family, which is where the stone takes its name, were the next to own it, paying for it with bankruptcy and the death of their lineage. The stone passed through the hands of the Russian prince Kanatolsky and his mistress, whom he shot dead shortly after giving her the stone. The prince was also assassinated by revolutionaries. Simon Monterides, a Greek merchant, bought the diamond, and on their carriage ride, they fell off a cliff when one of the wheels suddenly came off, killing him and all of his family. The misfortune then fell to the Sultan of Turkey, Abdul Hamid II, who gave it to his wife, Sabaya Hamid. After a couple's fight, the Sultan strangled his wife, and he himself was overthrown, dying in a prison for mysterious causes. The stone was lost for many years, and one day it suddenly appeared in a bank vault in Paris. The bank mysteriously went bankrupt, and the next owner, who owned the Washington Post, brought misfortune to his family as his wife died of illness and his son was ran over by a carriage. The stone continued on its way until it fell into the hands of jeweler Pierre Cartier, who sold it to the McLeans, a couple who, as you can imagine, paid a high price with the death of their two children. One was ran over and the other by suicide. The divorce of the couple and the confinement of Mr. McLean in a psychiatric hospital where he died. In 1949, Harry Winston donated the stone to the National Museum of Natural History of the Smithsonian Institution in Washington, where it is exhibited in the Harry Winston Pavilion, the last known owner, and who, by the way, did not escape the curse and died of a seizure to the heart. Four Oxford students brought back from Egypt a mummy tomb lid dating between 900 and 950 BC, apparently of a priestess devoted to Amun-Ra, the ancient Egyptian sun god. The cursed mummy, as it was baptized, unleashed its curse from the beginning, taking the lives of two students who were transporting it, and everyone who came into contact with the object. The most chilling thing is that the lid of the tomb was being transported by the Titanic, and after the sinking of that luxurious ocean liner, it floated, being rescued and transported back to London by the Empress of Ireland, another ship that also sank. The sarcophagus was recovered from the waters for a second time and delivered to Kaiser Guillermo in Germany. Shortly after the First World War began, the cursed mummy currently rests in room 62 of the British Museum.
In 1702, Thomas Busby came home drunk to find his father-in-law, Daniel Audy, sitting in his favorite chair and threatening to take his daughter with him. Busby just thought of grabbing a hammer and hitting Audy over the head to death. The murderer was tried and sentenced to hang, but before, as his last wish, he asked to drink one more night in his favorite pub, sitting in his chair. When it was time to leave, Busby pronounced,
"May death come to anyone who dares sit in this chair!"
The curse was fulfilled. having a series of misfortunes of which the following stands out. Number 1, in World War II, the soldiers who sat in that chair did not return. Number 2, in 1967, a pilot of the British Armed Forces, after making a bet to prove that such a superstition was not real, suffered a fatal accident in his plane hours after sitting in the chair. Number 3, another driver died horribly in his car minutes after having lunch sitting in Thomas Busby's chair. Number 4, in 1970, a bricklayer died from sitting on that damn chair. He also did it as part of a bet, since he didn't believe in cursed items. The worker thought he had won the bet, but minutes later, the roof of the construction site he was working on collapsed on him, killing him. Number 5, even the pub cleaning lady who tripped and fell on the chair died of a brain tumor minutes later. And so the account grew until breaking a record of more than 60 people killed by this cursed object. The chair was donated to the local museum and hangs 5 meters in the air to prevent anyone from sitting on it.
Considered one of the world's cursed objects, people who have owned the vase have died within weeks. The silver vase, made in the 15th century, was a wedding gift that an Italian bride received one day before the wedding, and who never got married because the bride was murdered the night before, and at the time of her death, she had the vase in her hands. At this time, the curse of this item begins. The vase stayed in the family, and every relative who owned the vase soon died. After countless deaths, the family disposed of the vase by burying it. But in 1988, a man digging around his yard discovered a vase, and inside it was a note that said, "Be careful, this vase brings death." Instead of leaving the object in the same place and burying it again, this man had nothing better to do than throw away the note it contained and took it to an auction house. The vase was auctioned for $2,250, and its first owner was a pharmacist who died 3 months after having it in his possession. The second owner was a 37-year-old surgeon who bought the vase and died 2 months later. The third owner died 2 months later, and the fourth and the last one died within a month. According to some Italian newspapers, the police confiscated the vase and reburied it in a lead box at an unknown location, and nothing has been heard from the cursed vase until today.
Also known as the Goddess of Death, this small limestone statue, handcrafted around 3500 BC, has brought entire families to their graves. It was discovered in 1878 in Eastern Europe, and Lord Elfond became its first owner and owned it for 7 years, and during those 7 years, all 7 members of the Elfond family died of mysterious causes. Its second owner was Ivor Manucci, and during the time the statue was in the life of this family, all died mysteriously. The third owner was Mr. Thompson Noel, and both he and his family suffered the same fate as the previous owners. During the years that the statue was in their possession, all the members died under mysterious circumstances. The fourth owner was Sir Alan Biberbrook, and both he and his wife and two of his daughters died. But Biberbrook's two sons survived, and even though they were skeptical of the occult, they were terrified by the sudden and bizarre deaths of their family members. These two brothers decided to donate the statue to the Royal Scottish Museum in Edinburgh, where it currently stands.
Like this video to prevent the night beast from bothering and visiting you, and subscribe, activate the bell for creepier and twisted content brought from the bowels of the beyond. Remember that you can find unique content, information about our next videos, bases for our bizarre contest, and much more on our social media found in the description. Do not hesitate and let yourself be caught by our loop of horror.
Last but not least, if you ever find a strange object, think twice before owning it, for it may be a magical talisman with a lot of virtuous intentions inside. But it can also be a cursed object that makes you fall from grace.